All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're taking what sounds like a massive, tangled up legal nightmare, maritime pollution liability, and visualizing it so it's super easy to understand at first glance. You know, when we think about incidents out at sea, it's so easy to picture total chaos, right? But what we're looking at today is how the law actually steps in and creates perfect order out of that mess. We're going to see exactly how this framework ensures rapid accountability and lightning fast cleanup, all without getting bogged down in endless finger pointing. It's a genuinely fascinating look at how international and domestic rules just perfectly interlock to protect our oceans. So let's set up a messy hypothetical scenario. Picture this. Two massive cargo ships have a fender bender right in the middle of a busy shipping lane. Boom. Oil spills. Now, whose cargo is it? Whose fuel? Out on the open water, things mix incredibly fast. So the very first question that pops up, and honestly, the one that needs an instant answer so the cleanup crews can actually get to work, is simply this. Who pays? Which brings us to part one, the multi-ship mess. Okay, so when a scenario involves more than one ship, we absolutely need a rock-solid rulebook to stop companies from just passing the buck, right? The environment can't just sit around and wait. Well, Section 178 beautifully solves this right out of the gate. If we literally can't figure out whose oil is whose, meaning the pollution damage is not reasonably separable, and no one is completely exonerated, the law steps in and stops the finger-pointing cold. All owners are fully accountable. It's a totally no-nonsense approach. The courts aren't going to sit there with a microscope trying to divide a giant oil slick into percentages while the clock ticks. Instead, they just cast a massive net of accountability over everyone involved. And this brings us to a really fascinating legal concept you've probably heard of, being jointly and severally liable. The easiest way to visualize this, think about splitting a massive dinner bill with your friends. The restaurant holds every single one of you responsible for the total amount until it's paid in full. If one guy forgets his wallet, well, the rest of you still have to cover the whole tab. In the maritime world, this rule ensures the cleanup fund gets filled on day one. The ship owners, they can argue among themselves later about who owes what to whom, but the community gets paid immediately. It's incredibly efficient. Moving on to part two, which court takes charge? So, once we know the ship owners are on the hook, we need a referee, right? We need a specific court to actually manage the money and oversee the claims. Under Section 179, it's crystal clear. The case goes straight to the High Court that oversees the specific location of the damage. There are zero guessing games here. If the spill happens in the territorial waters of a specific regional area, the High Court governing that exact spot takes the wheel. They establish what's called a limitation fund. Just picture a massive, highly secure bank account funded by the ship owner, ready to pay out all the compensation claims. All right, part three, navigating the EEZ rules. But wait, what if the spill happens way out in the exclusive economic zone? Or what if the oil slick literally crosses into the territory of multiple courts? The ocean moves, right? So what happens when the damage isn't neatly boxed into one local high court's jurisdiction? Well, the law has a wonderfully practical backup plan here. When things get geographically messy, the jurisdiction simply follows the detained ship. Look at how perfectly this steps out. Wherever the authorities bring that responsible vessel into port and detain it, that specific port's high court instantly becomes the referee. This guarantees a structured court is always ready to fund the cleanup rapidly, with absolutely zero time wasted arguing over maps and boundaries. You detain the ship, you lock in the court. Super easy to visualize. And finally, part four, international limitation funds. Because oceans connect us all, an incident off one coast can easily spill over, literally, causing damage on the shores of a neighboring country. When these become complex global puzzles, the Civil Liability Convention steps in. It's actually a very flexible system. If neighboring countries have to take preventative measures or if they suffer damages themselves, they are absolutely allowed to bring claims for compensation in their own courts. But here's where we see a fascinating balance of power. While the convention allows for all that global flexibility, India maintains strict centralized control over its own limitation fund. If that fund is set up in India to pay out damages, the apportionment, basically how that financial pie is sliced up and distributed, is strictly handled locally. Which brings us to this incredibly powerful final provision. The law explicitly states that once the fund is established in India, only the High Court or the central government has the jurisdiction to actually distribute that money. It keeps the financial resolution tightly organized under one roof. No chaotic free-for-all with multiple international courts demanding a piece of the same pie. It's a remarkable way to maintain order and guarantee that coastal communities get rapid cleanup funding instead of waiting years on international legal squabbles. But you know, it does leave us with a really interesting thought.
Does this immense power of structured, localized maritime law ensure the absolute best justice for our oceans? Or does it leave us wanting a more seamlessly unified global system for when these disasters cross borders? Definitely something to chew on the next time you look out at a horizon full of cargo ships. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.